I am trying to teach not so much what what Revelation is, but I'm trying to teach you how to study it. Okay, I'm going to get into teaching a little bit of Revelation, but I really want to teach you how to cipher the signs and symbols. How to instead of just here's some.
So David won't bother you.
Oh,
This is the one.
do we have any more chairs?
You knew we'd be.
I did. I was going to wait.
There's chairs stacked.
The way I got going in this, I started this when I was about 15. I was in church. I was not interested in the sermon.
Okay.
That's happened before.
Not when you were preaching.
Probably.
I'm sorry.
I was preaching for 7 years, and there were some times I was not interested in that. Oh, this is not good for today. Thomas, my assistant, Vanna White here. But I wasn't, I don't know if I had bad attitude or what, but I was like, I'm not listening to this. I'm just going to start reading the Bible. I'll do the next best thing. And I opened the book to Zechariah. And I started reading about horses running all over the place, and I'm like, what is this? What in the world am I reading? I went and asked an elder, and he said, I have no idea. Go ask your dad. My dad was an elder. Son, I don't have any idea. Go ask him. And so I asked the third elder, and the third elder said to go ask the first elder. I was like, I already asked him. He said he had no clue. Well, go ask the fourth elder. They didn't know. None of them knew. And I was like, I'll just figure it out myself. So 32 years later, I'm still trying to figure it out. I think I've got a decent grasp of it now, but that's how long. And I tell people that I had back then a big advantage in that I did not have the internet. When I began all of this studies, I had my Dixon Study Bible, which is King James with American Standard in parentheses, and it has a ton of cross-references. And so what I would do is I would exhaust the chain of cross-references. If a verse had little bitty cross-reference, I was like, what is that talking about? I go like, oh, that's saying the same thing. What is this passage about? And I'm guessing it took over a year before this stuff finally started clicking. My first time through Isaiah, didn't know. I just started highlighting cross-references and words that were phrases that I found in other parts of the Bible. And then I started connecting everything. And then finally I got a big grasp of it. The internet comes along while I'm like in college. And I'm not even kidding. For the first 3 years, I thought the internet was an AOL chat room where you chatted with what you hoped was a girl on the other end. And that's it. That's what I thought the internet was. I didn't know it was anything else. And it wasn't until after I got out of college that people started teaching me, no, there's that, see that blue E? And I was like, yeah, I just wondered what that was. And that took you to the internet. Well, now I've used it some, but when I was figuring all this stuff out the very hard way, I was not distracted by all of these agendas and slants and theories and stuff like that. I was just using Isaiah and Ezekiel and Joel and Zechariah and tying it in with Matthew, and Revelation was the goal. We're trying to understand Revelation. And that would have been the late 90s. And then now today I go out there and I'm like, whoa, I'm not the one that came up with this, because everybody thinks they're the own center of their universe, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit here. And I started seeing, I was like, oh, there's a lot of people, and a lot of really, really, really old dead people that think this way too. And I didn't know. I thought that was kind of cool, kind of verification of what I was thinking. So, why do we study Revelation? And again, we will eventually get to Isaiah. We're going to spend most of our time in Isaiah, but the point is to learn Revelation. why do we study? One, it's part of God's word, right? You don't just throw out the parts you don't like or can't understand or whatever. Study, show yourself approved unto God. A lot of certain religions will throw out the book of James, right? They're not interested in that book. It goes against their religion. Instead of conforming to the word of God, they make the word of God conform to them. So they just throw that book out. They don't like it. So it's in there. Whatever, that's probably not a good enough reason. I believe it is a great opportunity to reach people, to do ice breaking, to get in good. I have converted a Mormon from this before. Okay? The world is so interested in Revelation, they're so interested in end time stuff, and it's an opportunity. It's a ripe opportunity that you can, if you can learn this stuff and sound halfway intelligent on it, they'll be like, that's pretty cool, that's a real good view of it. What else do you know? I'm like, oh, have you ever read Acts 2:38? You know, you can easily segue into that stuff. Okay? So I think that's it. And a third reason is that the misinterpretation of Revelation has led to many wayward religions. Okay, a lot of them form in the 1800s. You have Seventh-day Adventists. That comes purely out of misunderstanding Revelation. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses. All of this is Revelation-based stuff. And you can kind of go through the history of the different theories out there. And the characteristics that you'll find, the main theories. Do y'all know what the main theories of Revelation are? Somebody tell me one. Just general 2-3 words. Anybody know one?
God wins in the end.
God wins in the end. General victory of good over evil. Okay? And while I have no problem with that and agree 100%, it doesn't really dig that deep. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that theory. It's just very, very basic, very surface. What's another one?
How long? How long?
How long? How long what?
Till the righteous are avenged. Well,
Sorry, I didn't mean it.
We do need more chairs. I did not expect these numbers. So you have the different persecutions of the faithful and the souls under the altar. How long, right? But really it's about who's doing the persecuting. The different theories cover who's doing the persecuting. You have Rome. Is it persecuting Rome? Is it the papacy? Is it the Pope? Is it the United States? Is it Hitler? You know, there's all these different theories, and what I've found in studying all these different theories and when and what was going on in the world is that they typically make these 4 major mistakes. One, they're very self-centered things. What I'm going through here, this is Tertullian in 180 AD. What I'm going through here, I'm a Roman Christian. Christianity is, we're trying to be Christians here in Rome, but they're on again, off again, persecuting us. One emperor would, the next one wouldn't. The next one would be friendly toward Christians. The next one wouldn't. And he's like, Rome is the persecuting one. Because he's centering it around himself. Okay? You go a little bit earlier, you go to the Judaizers there, the thorn in Paul's side, right? The Judaizers, their theory of Revelation is that Christ is going to come back, the Messiah is going to come back and rule Judaism, rule Israel, the Jews, the old law, on his seat in literal Jerusalem, even though it's been smashed to smithereens by the Romans. He's going to come back and set up this earthly kingdom. Well, why? Because they're all Judaizers and they want it to be all about them. Okay? Clement, he is, I think he is early 3rd century. He's like, no, this stuff is about the destruction of Jerusalem to the Romans. And then Augustine of Hippo, do y'all know who that is? Can anybody tell me who Augustine of Hippo is? Have you ever heard the name? Raise your hand just if you've heard the name before. Augustine of Hippo is what I call, I'm like the only person in the world that does this is just me. Augustine of Hippo is what I call the father of Catholicism. He's the one that he's contemporary with Emperor Theodosian.
Yeah.
And so late 300s, early 400s, and he gets into a battle with a guy named Pelagius about free will versus predestination of the soul. Not predestination of the church, but predestination of the soul. And he's saying, no, we don't have free will. Because he has this big old book where he likes to sin. He's like, I can't help that. I don't have free will. And so they get into this big old fight. Anyway, so I don't agree with Augustine on anything on that. But there are a couple of very good things that Augustine says. One is he says, Christ is the rock that the church is built upon, not Peter. So he's very anti-Catholic there, right? Except he's really the one that starts this whole original sin, infant baptism, all that stuff. It all starts with him. But that's not what we're studying. 2, he says, yeah, this book, Revelation, is about events in the 1st century when Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans. Okay? So here's a couple of early guys. You get then into, you go for a while, 1,000 years or so. You go for a while. And then what starts happening? What's happening in the world in the 1300s?
The Crusades.
The Crusades have been going on for a little bit, okay? But that is extremely tied to the correct answer, okay? The Pope starts getting earthly. He starts being a king. He starts commanding armies. Okay? He's no longer just worried about religious stuff, he's worried about power and money. Right? Who is this guy? Anybody know who Edward III is?
English king.
English king.
He's an English king. What's the most famous thing about him?
He's really mean.
Well, they all were.
Well, I mean, if you buy Shakespeare's account.
Okay. What event was going on in his lifetime? What consumed his life? His reign? The answer's right here.
100 Years' War, right?
The 100 Years' War.
Between England and France.
Between England and France, and whose side was the Pope on? Because the Pope is just supposed to be a spiritual leader concerned with their souls, right? Yeah, no, that's not the way it went. The Pope relocated into France for like a century almost. It's not quite a century. He's in France, he sided with the French, he's French, and then when the Tudors come along later, they're still siding against the English. The English don't like him. Well, what happens? What comes up from all of that? English Protestantism. Okay? Out from the aftermath of the 100 Years' War, of the Henry VIII wanting to divorce his Catholic wife. All of that stuff. What happens? Well, the English Protestants everywhere are saying, oh, yeah, the Pope is Antichrist. So now you get this theory, this self-centered theory that the harlot is the Pope. It's papal Rome. Okay? Because why? Well, because that's what I'm going through right now, so this is the theory I have to come up with. Okay? There's a big Protestant named Calvin. Where does he live?
Switzerland?
He is what nationality? He is French. Right? Who said Switzerland? He's not English,
He's not English yet.
okay? Where he technically lived, I don't even actually know. Okay? France and Switzerland are right next to each other, and it probably did not have those boundaries back then. Well, he does not buy into this. Why? Well, because he's French. So the Pope is not the Antichrist, even though he's very anti-Pope, he doesn't go that far. So, because it didn't suit his needs, he doesn't buy into that theory. Okay, and these theories kind of go away. You get into the 1800s, and they start, one entire religion is based on this girl having like convulsions and a vision or something like this, teenage girl. And they're like, oh, we need to form a religion after that. And they're like, if you count the days in Revelation and turn them into years, that means it's our time. And Revelation will happen if I personally go out and spread the word of God. I'm the catalyst to very self-centered. So you get more and more of these interpretations of Revelation. And you can just go through and study them one after another on where the theory originated from and what was that person's circumstances. And all of their theories originate from their circumstances. Okay? So I find that they're all kind of self-centered. They're all, what is happening to me right now? That's what Revelation is about. Now, we were talking before a lot of y'all came in here. You can learn a lot of stuff and apply a lot of the Bible, even though it wasn't directed to us, wasn't written to us. It was still written for us. We can learn stuff from it. We can apply, hey, don't turn to spiritual help to the Egyptians or the Assyrians. Stay faithful to God. And that applies to us today, even though it's talking about stuff that was going on then. For some of you that have been in my Daniel Revelation 21 class, what do I consider the most emphasized point in the book of Revelation? Anybody know? The time is at hand. I must come quickly. This must shortly come to pass. It's in there almost a dozen times. It is emphasized, whatever you think the book is about, let's forget all these theories for a second. John says it over and over and over. He says it in the first verse. He says it in the third verse. He says it like 7, 8 more times in chapter 22 in the closing. So in the intro and the closing, when you're in junior high learning to write essays, which is terrible, I hated that. Like, make your point, make your most important points in the beginning and the end. Well, that's what he's doing. Go look through it. It's multiple times where he is stressing the things of this book were about to happen. Well, when you get into all of these other theories, this premillennialist stuff starts happening in the 1800s. The postmillennialist stuff starts happening in the 1800s. Mormonism comes along in the 1800s. Jehovah's Witness comes along in, I think, early 1900s. They're all based on this. They're all based on this. But they all miss the point. It's like John is like, hey, he's saying he's going to come quickly. Hey, the time is at hand. This thing's going to shortly. And then he walks out there, I got them. I tricked them. They think it's about to happen. And we're going on 2,000 years and some of this stuff hasn't happened. A lot of the people, the Judaizers in the first century, there wasn't a day where they just went, we were wrong. It's not about that. But nobody believed that their complete version anymore. The people in the 1830s, 1840s, they thought in 1844, they literally thought, they counted the years from the date of John's prophecy. They counted the years, and they're like, okay, in 1844, it's happening, it's going down. 1844 came and went, October something, nothing happened. You had a lot of disappointed people. Some left Christianity. Can you imagine that? And that's one of the reasons why I'm teaching this class. Is so that none of us make mistakes, and we can do this. Earthly. Another major mistake that you see in all of these theories. They think that Christ is going to come back and set up an earthly kingdom. Christ addresses that very plainly while he's here on earth. What does he say? My kingdom is not of this world. And yet, there's so many theories. Matter of fact, almost all of them. That say, yeah, he's going to come back and set up an earthly kingdom. He's going to sit on his throne for 1,000 years in Jerusalem. No. Get behind me, Satan. My kingdom is not of this world. It's a spiritual kingdom. The Pharisees and Sadducees, they made that mistake. The apostles made that mistake. The Judaizers in the 2nd century made that mistake, and we are still making that mistake today. The kingdom is the church. It's a spiritual kingdom. It rules over sin. It's not a geographical thing. You have to really transition over to this spiritual version. And the 4th major mistake is a lot of them go to the millennium, the 1,000 years. They get this out of chapter 19, chapter 20. I can't remember what chapter it's in. They think that 1,000 is a literal 1,000, right? Can somebody read Deuteronomy 7:9? Read it out loud, whoever's there first. Deuteronomy 7:9.
Know that the Lord your God is God, the trusted God who faithfully keeps his covenant to the 1,000th generation of those who love him and obey his commands.
But if you're the 1,001st generation, you're in trouble. He won't be faithful to you. You better hope you're not the 1,001st generation. Because let's take 1,000 literal.
Yeah.
There's another verse that talks about, I don't have it by memory yet, where he is the creator. He's the maker of all the cattle. And he says, and somebody can look this up while I'm doing it, he's the owner of the cattle on 1,000 hills. But when you get to that 1,001st hill, he doesn't own those cattle. He didn't make them. No, 1,000 means complete. It means all of it. It means that it's good for the time intended, or the amount that was intended. It's like the highest number they could count to back then. So when you said 1,000, it meant all of it.
Infinity.
Say it again?
Infinity.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. It could definitely mean that. I don't know if there's infinite number of cows on the planet, but I do my fair share in eating steak. Anybody want some coming over? I love cooking. So they get that, and they just kind of botch it up. So you'll find these points in there pretty common amongst these theories. The dating, I wanted to talk a second for the dating of the book of Revelation. There are basically just two theories out there on when it was written. Does anybody know either one of them? Say a number. What year AD was it written? There's an early date that is somewhere in the 60s, 63, 65, 68, somewhere in there. And there's a late date, 95, 96 AD. Okay? I will tell you right now, I am in the early date. I'll kind of tell you why here. The late date. Okay, why do we have two dates for this? Okay? What's that?
I say it makes John live too long.
That's one of my points. It doesn't. John's 100 years old, and he's told, make sure you go to every nation and spread this message. Okay. I'll get there. It's exactly right. But people ignore that. But my goodness, that is a great point. Common sense people will be like, oh yeah, that's enough for me. But you need more than that. Eusebius, guy we talked about earlier, he's got a lot of stuff out there. He's got a lot of material. Eusebius is writing in the 320s, I think, was when he's writing this. And he's like, oh, I remember Irenaeus. I remember seeing that Irenaeus wrote this down from 185 AD. All right, so we've got a 150-year gap here. And Irenaeus said that when he was young, because he wrote this when he was old, he's like, hey, when I was young, I remember Polycarp. We're playing that elementary telephone game of pass the word, except we're doing it through centuries. What's harder to do, centuries or a room of kindergartners? I don't know, it's probably the same, right? So, I remember that Polycarp said when he was old that he remembered, because he was a disciple of John, he was there with John, okay? He's like, he made the statement that it was seen. Noun was seen. Now, just noun. We don't have any more description other than noun. Noun was seen. He's sitting there talking about John. He's like, John, and he was contemporary with us. He's the one who saw the vision. And it looks like he's saying John was seen, but it's just noun. The most ambiguous thing you can get. It was seen. And he was working amongst us. The noun was seen. So to me, when I read it, looks like John, but it doesn't matter. This is the only source for the 95-96 AD date. Because somewhere in there they say that was going on and that happened. He saw John in 95 AD. Okay? He is doing that, and yeah, hanging out.
We're going to pass out some small group sign-up sheets. Is the Barkley or Ivy here by any chance? Barkley, Ivy, or Strickland Webb? No. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Try women for Strickland Way.
So that is the basis, and everybody else starts building off of that. Why is this important? Why is this date important? Well, because if it's written in 95 and 96 AD, it cannot be about Rome destroying Jerusalem in 70 AD. It's already happened. Okay? It's after the fact. But just to cover that, because a lot of you will hear that, it's written in 95, it's 95, 96 AD, it can't be about what court's saying it's about. Well, no, that's the only thing. And you have document after document after document that says, John's vision, okay, some of the earliest translations of the Bible, the Syriac version, the Aramaic Peshitta version, or Peshitta, or I don't know, whatever it is. There's a Mauritanian tablet or something like that. There's all these things that when they did their translation, the title of Revelation is The Revelation of St. John Divine, which he received on the Isle of Patmos when he was banished by Nero Caesar. That's their title. That's their official title of the book of Revelation. It literally is saying it was written in the 60s AD. And there's multiple accounts. Augustine, Clement, all of these guys for a long time are like, no, this was written in the 60s. This is under Nero. Nero's first name, what is Nero's first name? Nero's first name is Domitius. Somebody somewhere along the way said, oh, he got exiled by Domitius? Meaning Domitian? When did Domitian rule? 95, 96 AD. Okay? You see where the confusion comes in? You've got plenty of these sources that say, and I would say a bunch of them. What we are going to get into here in Isaiah. Isaiah is considered what? What is his nickname?
Messianic.
The Messianic prophet. A lot of people, I said that weird. A lot of people think he's the fifth gospel. Okay? I found all this stuff out way later once I figured out the internet was not a chat room to meet girls. I did not know this when I started studying it. I did not meet a girl on the internet, by the way. So, we're going to be looking at Isaiah. We're going to be looking at his work. And we're going to be looking at the language. He is metaphor happy. He is metaphor after metaphor. He mixes metaphor. He'll throw two in one verse that have nothing to do with each other. He just metaphor, 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 metaphor. Okay? And we're going to study that, and we're going to go real slow, I hope. If I go fast, y'all slow me down. We're going to go real slow, and we're going to start unraveling these metaphors. Some of them I did not. I've studied this and believed this way for a very long time. In preparing for this class, I ran across many more that I didn't even know were there. Okay, so there's some like the veil and stuff like that. When we get to that stuff, I'm like, I did not know that before I started making these notes. So it's been really nice. Also, I just want to say there is a 100% chance I will say something that is not correct. Okay? I think it's just not possible. I think it is possible, but for what I've been doing, and the reason I say this is, you go out to a tool like BibleHub.net, and you type in, hey, what does Isaiah 1:1 mean? And it'll show you like 10, 15 different people's theories on what that means, commentaries. And I did not read those until I started preparing for this class, because I wanted to know what other people said as well. Not just, I wanted to give y'all more than just my layman brain, okay? Do you have to be smart to get your stuff on BibleHub.net? Oh yeah, you got to have doctorates and statues and websites and maybe not websites. I don't think they're all dead now, but none of those guys agree on anything. They're all real smart, and they're all saying various stuff. Hey, I think this is talking about Christ. Oh, this is talking about Nebuchadnezzar. Oh, this is talking about Sennacherib. This is talking about Hezekiah. So the chances of me getting it 100% right are 0. Okay? So I retain that right to, oh, yeah, let me go back. Because in making my notes, that's already happened like 3 or 4 times. Okay? I am not inspired. I am not the source. I am a teacher trying to get you to learn how to learn it on your own. Really, that's my goal. All right, Isaiah. We'll read at least one verse here. I think that this verse right here is the most important verse in the book. Maybe let me rephrase that. Not most important. They're all important. It is the summary of the book. I think it is the summary of the whole book. And it's all the way kind of at the end. I originally, when I was going to teach this, I was just going to teach chapters 60 through 66. I was like, I can't do that. I have to give the background. Nobody's going to believe a word I say if I start in 60. Okay? And the Gentiles shall see thy righteousness, and all the kings thy glory, and thou shalt be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall name. This is loaded. This is loaded to me. What is this saying? What's the first thing you notice? This is written in the 700s, BC.
Jesus.
Okay. What? Tell me more. I have 5%. I have about 5 minutes on my battery here. We'll just go. My power cord is in the front flat. I get it. Thank you. So what about Jesus?
They're going to join the Gentiles and be a part of it.
That is right. What chapter? What's the major chapter? What's one of the major chapters of that in the New Testament, where the Gentiles are going to be a part of Christ, of the body of Christ? Give me a chapter. Just give me one of them. The one I think. What?
Acts 10.
Acts 10.
Cornelius.
Yes.
Of Cornelius.
That's fantastic. That's so exactly correct. Okay? The one I was thinking of is kind of the summation of what's going on in Acts 10, is Ephesians chapter 2. Romans 9, 10, 11, that all deals with it a lot. Okay? And tell them you're going to have to wheel it over a little closer.
It has a two-pronged, three-pronged, don't worry about it, I'll figure it out.
Three-prong is over here.
No, don't sweat it.
The Gentiles would be allowed into the church. They would be joined with Christ. Does this happen in the Assyrian invasion under Sennacherib? No. The answer is no. It does not happen. Okay? Does it happen when Nebuchadnezzar comes in? No. It doesn't. When's the only time in history where the Gentiles could start being added into the church? What century? The 1st century AD. This book is about the transition from Judaism to Christianity. Isaiah's about it, Revelation's about it, Hebrews is about it, Ephesians 2 is about it, Matthew 23 and 24 are about it. You get cross-references everywhere. You're going to get so tired of me going to Matthew 23. It's a one-time event. This starts in the 1st century. Cornelius, the very first case. Right? Fantastic. You get A+. Good job. What else do you notice up here? There's a sneaky little line there, kind of on the bottom.
New name. Christian.
What's the new name? Somebody said.
Christian.
I think David said, yeah. When do God's faithful get a new name? When is the only time in history that they are given a new name? When they go through the transition from Judaism to Christianity? In the 1st century. When the Gentiles are going to come, be a part of the church, and this is a good thing because I'm pretty sure most of us in here are Gentile, right? And we'll get that new name. You're going to see this a lot. How to study? Look at this, slide 2. Can somebody read verse 1? Isaiah 1:1.
The vision concerning Judah and Jerusalem that Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw during the reigns of all these kings I can't pronounce.
Isaiah.
It's the kings of Judah.
Yeah.
It's like
Ahaz, Hezekiah, Jotham.
Ahaz, Hezekiah.
So don't worry about that part. It's the very first phrase.
Yeah.
What is the vision about?
Concerning Judah,
Judah
and
Jerusalem. Don't forget that. I will say that 1,000 times so that you don't forget what this vision is about. Because he starts talking about them and then rapidly starts talking about 25 other nations. I thought your vision was about Judah and Jerusalem. Why are you talking about everybody but Judah and Jerusalem? Because after like a chapter 10, 11, 12, something like that, he doesn't talk about them for a long time. It's like the rest of the first half of the book. But he's taking these nations and he's saying, see, you know how Sodom did this? You're worse than Sodom. You are Sodom. You know how Philistia, you know how they're guilty of this? You're Philistia. You know how the Edomites did this, and Moab did this, and Babylon did this, and that's you. You're worse than they. It's going to be worse for you in the end than it was for them. Just because Isaiah's not going out. All right, it's time to go to Elam. It's time to go to Philistia. I'm going to come up here to, let's see, here's Babylon. Here's Assyria. He's not doing that. He's because he gets all these burdens, right? If you've read the book, if you're familiar with the book. He's not going out and prophesying to all those nations. He's talking to the Jews. The prophecy is about Judah and Jerusalem. The second half of the book, you're going to see a whole lot, like Isaiah 53. Everybody should be familiar with that. It's read for the Lord's Supper all the time. Okay? It's just Christ and the church coming and the Gentiles being part of it. The thing that we're going to be addressing a lot is when. I've already asked it 10 times. When did that happen? The 1st century AD. By the way, that's the answer to every question I ask. When I was trying to learn this and struggling, reading through Isaiah especially, but reading through some of the others, I kept thinking, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is Babylon, Babylon, Babylon. And Christ is riding into town on a donkey in that day? That makes no sense to me. But I started following these little self-study tools that I made for myself. And I think that it's really helpful. If you see the Gentiles being added, know that that's the church, that that's Acts 10, that's Ephesians 2, that's Romans 9, Romans 11. You're going to see a lot about Christ coming. If you see Christ, know that in that day, and I have all my in that day highlighted in green, so that your mind will be like, okay, this is talking about Christ. Because some of the verses in there will be like, well, I don't know, Court, I don't know. And in that day, Christ is going to come into town riding on a donkey. Oh, okay, you convinced me. And then the third one is your cross-references. You can't know Revelation, you can't know Isaiah unless you're checking your cross-references. You will get it wrong. You've got to check your cross-references. And a lot of times, sometimes they just quote it. Sometimes they say, and the prophet said this, or in the old law it says this. But there's like 60, 70 times where they say, hey, remember when Isaiah said this? It's being fulfilled right now. This that we are doing right here this very second is the fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy. And I haven't counted it. My guess is it happens 60, 70 times. Okay, and you get a whole lot more of the prophets say, and the forefathers of the Old Testament or whatever. It'll say that. Okay, so I want to do this, and then I think we will end here. Yeah, because we'll start getting into metaphors next week. This is kind of what's going on. You're going to learn some Assyrian history. And by the way, I found out that about 150, 170 years ago, most people thought Assyria was kind of a made-up, mythological, didn't really exist society. They thought the Bible was way wrong. And then some British dude went digging in Nineveh and poked a hole in a room and discovered like the world's biggest Assyrian library. Didn't know what he's looking at because they just make cuts in tablets. That's their writing, the cuneiform, whatever. But once they started finally figuring this out, it was like they were reading Kings and Chronicles in the Bible. All the exact same stuff. Like, whoa, the Bible is insanely accurate. When before they thought it was just made up. Okay? The Assyrians were notorious of that day. Tiglath-Pileser, Sargon II, Shalmaneser, Ashurbanipal, Sennacherib. These guys came knocking, you were dead. And you were dead in a bad way. You were flayed, and then impaled, and then they burned you, and they made your kids watch, or they did it to your kids and made you watch. They were very, very, very bad. And they were doing this in the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Well, there's this period before Tiglath-Pileser, who is, I don't have him on here. I think he comes in some 745. So before this, they've got three kings of Assyria. They don't go out and conquer anybody. They're not stealing from every nation out there. They're not murdering every single person they can see to take their money or their women. There's three peaceful, do-nothing kings of Assyria. And the later Assyrians call these guys weak. Why are these three kings this way? What had happened during that first one, about 780 AD. Did anybody know?
I can read the board.
Oh, I forgot to put it up there. Jonah goes, he's sent, he don't want to go. Why does he not want to go?
Bad people.
These dudes were bad.
Yeah. He wanted to destroy.
Yeah, he wanted them, the whole known Near East, wanted those dudes dead in a bad way. Not want them to repent. So he's out on the street corner of Nineveh and he's like, if you guys don't repent, God's going to destroy you. Okay, I'm done. I'm pretty sure there's something, he's not interested. Now he goes, we know the story, he goes, and what do? They repent. They stop all this nonsense. He's effective. But then again, they eventually turn back. We're talking Nineveh here. Nineveh is the Assyrian capital. Ashur is the religious center down south. I think they're on the Tigris. So I think Nineveh is up here, somewhere, Mosul, Iraq. If you want to go there today, you can still see the ruins. I was going to bring a picture, but I'm teaching 2 months before I thought it was. Ashur's a little bit further south. Ashur is the name of their god. Assyria is the land of Ashur. Okay? More or less. I don't know if that's literal. Do you know, Kevin?
Close enough.
It's what I got out of it. Not teaching language class here, so. But that's what it was. And these guys are it for a long time. I mean, they had their roots back into, oh gosh, I don't think they were a part of it. I think the Akkadians and the Sumerians are a little bit further down south. I think that's Babylon and Ur and all of that, the Chaldean empires where Abraham is from. All of these guys are interacting with each other right here in this area over the couple thousand years. Well, they were very, very bad for a very long time. Jonah comes in. The Bible tells us he was successful, that they do repent. And then Tiglath-Pileser comes along, and they get back to their old ways. He's mentioned in the Bible. Sargon's mentioned in the Bible. Sennacherib is mentioned in the Bible. Esarhaddon, I think, is mentioned in the Bible. Shalmaneser he's the one that starts the siege. Sargon takes over. All of these guys. Okay, Sargon the second or third, which I'm not sure. Okay, so that's what's going on. Is you've got Uzziah, you've got Jonah, then you've got Tiglath-Pileser coming in and the Assyrians, and then what does Assyria do? What's their very famous thing in 722? The northern tribes are gone. He comes in, he wipes out Israel. We're going to separate. We're going to say Israel is the north, or say Judah is the south. He wipes them out in 722. They are gone. They are no more. Never to. He repopulates the area with Gentiles. They turn into what? What nation? Samaritans. Okay? So that's kind of what is going on in the area. Ahaz, good, bad king. Which was he? Was Ahaz good or bad? Do y'all remember from Bible class? Bad. Ahaz, bad dude. He was in bed with the Assyrians. He was in bed, I think, with Tiglath-Pileser, who he gets this, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of money each year. Okay? Well, when Hezekiah comes along, Hezekiah's like a good king, probably the best king. And he's like, no, we're not doing that anymore. Sennacherib is like, yeah, I'm coming. And what does he do? What does Sennacherib do? He destroys, and this is recorded in the Bible, it's recorded in all those little jabs on the clay tablets. He comes all through Judea, ransacking every town, every fortified city. It's either like 44, 47 cities that he destroys, and you did not want to be in one of those cities because he murdered you in a bad way. 200,000 plus are taken off to captivity. and I looked and looked and looked, and it's important because we'll get to a verse that talks about the captives. I don't think they ever return. I don't think they're ever released or whatever. And then after Lachish, he comes and he's besieged Jerusalem, and he's like, yep, Jerusalem, you're next. And what happens? Is he successful? Because he's undefeated. The Assyrian massive, mean war machine is undefeated. They're like 300-0 in destroying fortified cities. They've got these tanks, what we would call a tank siege weapons. They knew how to do the engineering. It didn't matter if you had walls. You were dead if they came. So he's like 400-0 in his football record. Does he win at Jerusalem? What happens? Hezekiah is like, please God, you got to save us. That night, the angel of the Lord comes into the camp of the Assyrians and wipes out 185,000. And he says, I'm going to put a rumor in Sennacherib's ear, and he's going to say, I got to get home. I'm going to lose my kingdom back home. And that's exactly what happens. He takes off, he goes home, and it's a decade later or something like that, where, because it says he's going to go home and then he's going to be murdered by his own kids or something like that. I don't know the exact quote in the Bible. And that's exactly what happens. He goes home like a decade or two later. His kids are like, because he goes down and sacks Babylon, like destroys it, like unbelievably destroys it. And that was a no-no, that was a religious city. And so nobody likes him after that. And so his two kids are like, yeah, we're going to kill him. We're going to kill him and we're going to take over. And so they kill him, but then they're like, who did we say was going to be king? Well, it's me. No, it's me, it's me. And civil war, bam. So which one of those two won? Oh, I didn't put it up here. Neither one. Esarhaddon, the youngest, comes in. I don't know if he was youngest, I just think he's younger than them. I don't know how many kids these guys had. Esarhaddon comes in, kind of rebuilds. There's a guy named Ashurbanipal, who's I don't think mentioned in the Bible, and he's like the last great king, and then after that, Babylon is like, yeah, we're bigger than you, we're stronger than you, we're coming. We got the Medes on our sides, and they're destroyed. Completely and utterly off the map, gone. They don't survive. They're gone in 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. And that's all Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel, all that kind of stuff. Okay? We will get in next week. We will start talking about some of the signs and symbols. We'll actually read some verses in the book of Isaiah, which is why you came to this class.